They skipped my daughter's birthday. But 2 days later, I got a Venmo request. $2,850, group share for the family cruise. I sent back $1.50 with a note. Not on board. Then I locked down every shared account, froze their travel app access, and sent a single email to revoke all linked cards. Their dispute went nowhere. The reply read, "Owner authorization confirmed." 5 minutes later, my mother called me 10 times in a row. They didn't even call. Not a text, not a voicemail, not a single emoji from my parents, or my 4 sisters on my daughter Emily's 11th birthday. Nothing. Not even when my wife Melissa posted the cake photo with Emily grinning in her purple hoodie, holding up fingers shaped like an 11. It wasn't just insulting, it was surgical. Planned. Quiet. Melissa said to give it time. But I already knew. 2 nights earlier, during a group FaceTime, my sister Caitlin mentioned something about timing and next week being full. They all had that kind of weird, tiptoeing tone. I didn't think much of it. Maybe they had work stuff. Or someone was sick. I didn't press. But they weren't sick. 2 days after Emily's birthday passed like a ghost, I got a Venmo request. It was from Caitlin. The note said, $2,850, group share for family cruise. That's when my hands started shaking. I stared at it for a full minute. The profile picture was all of them, sunburned and beaming in front of a cruise ship I didn't even know they'd boarded. My parents, all 4 sisters, their husbands and kids. Every single one of them. In the Caribbean, apparently, while Emily blew out candles in our living room with her best friend and a neighbor kid from down the street. I didn't reply to the request. I sent back $1.50 with a note. Not on board. Then I got to work. First, I blocked all shared accounts, bank logins, cloud drives, the shared Dropbox my dad insisted we use for family tax stuff, even the dumb travel app they always made me help pay for. Gone. Then I fired off one email, subject line: cancel all linked cards. I attached a scan of my ID, as the cardholder, and asked the bank to freeze and reissue everything under new numbers. The dispute they filed later was useless. I'd signed everything myself. The message they got back was simple: authorization confirmed by cardholder. 5 minutes later, my mom called me 10 times in a row. When I didn't answer, she switched to Melissa. Same pattern. 10 calls back to back. Then texts started popping up on both our phones, screenshots of the cruise itinerary, a group selfie with the caption, "We wish you were here," and one message from my mom that just said, "This is a family matter. Don't destroy us over one trip." One trip? Melissa was pacing the living room with her jaw clenched. She didn't say anything for a while, then finally muttered, "They left our daughter out on purpose." I knew she was right. It wasn't an accident. They knew. We'd sent invitations weeks ago. My dad even RSVP'd with a thumbs up. It wasn't that they forgot. They chose. That night, Melissa and I sat up till past midnight, whispering while Emily slept upstairs. She was still blissfully unaware. All she cared about was the photo book we made for her and the drawing tablet she'd been asking for since last year. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't stay quiet forever. And it didn't. The first sign that the storm was still forming came the morning after I shut everything down. I opened my inbox to find a single email from my father. The subject line said, "Let's be civil." The man who once told me, "Family's thicker than business," was now using lawyer speak to crawl back into the conversation. The body of the email was worse. He claimed the cruise had been a spontaneous booking, something about a discount window they couldn't pass up, and how it had accidentally overlapped with Emily's birthday. He mentioned spotty cell service, vague apologies, and ended it with, "We miss you and hope this doesn't become a bigger issue than it needs to be." It was padded with excuses but hollow at the center. No real acknowledgement. No regret. Just control. The kind of language you use when you're trying to manage a situation, not apologize for one. I left it unanswered. Around noon, the doorbell rang. I checked the Ring camera. It was my sister Marla. She was standing there alone, holding a plastic cruise-themed gift bag and what looked like a card. She didn't knock. She just waited. I watched her fidget, shifting from one foot to the other. Then, after a minute or two, she set the bag on the doormat and walked back to her car. Melissa stayed quiet in the kitchen. I stepped outside 10 minutes later and grabbed the bag like it was radioactive. Inside was a keychain shaped like a cruise ship, a glittery pen that said, Paradise 2025, and a Claire's gift card. $50. The envelope was addressed to Emily in Marla's handwriting, signed, Sorry we missed it. Love you forever. That was it. Nothing from the others. No message from my parents. No gifts. Not even a call. I tossed the card in the kitchen trash. Melissa opened the fridge like she hadn't seen me do it. She hadn't said much since the Venmo request. Just small comments here and there, little flares of disbelief, but mostly silence. The kind that takes effort. An hour later, Emily came bounding in from the porch with a bag. I guess I hadn't buried it far enough in the bin. She was holding the candy cruise ship like it was a Fabergé egg. Look what Aunt Marla left! She said they're gonna take me next time. Melissa looked up from her laptop, then looked back down without a word. I just nodded and told Emily we'd talk about it later. That night, while Melissa was loading the dishwasher and Emily was upstairs trying out her new drawing app, I got a voicemail from my father. I played it twice. He didn't ask how Emily was doing. He didn't say anything about the birthday. He opened with a line about moving forward and how we needed to have a serious conversation about the business. Specifically, the Tempe project, one of our most profitable developments under the family company. I own the majority. My dad knows that. He's always known that. When I called him back, I gave him exactly 2 minutes of small talk. Then I cut in. I'm removing myself from the business. You've got 30 days to take your names off the accounts. After that, you're frozen out. He didn't say anything for a moment. Then he said, You're really willing to blow up everything we built over a child's birthday party? I didn't answer. I just hung up. Later that night, Emily came into our room crying. She curled up between us and said she didn't understand. She kept asking what she did wrong. And then, right before falling asleep, she mumbled something that sent chills through me. Grandma said you were just mad because you weren't invited. That's when I knew my parents had already started turning her against me. And worse, they were doing it through the only window they had left, Emily. A week after the voicemail, everything got quieter, but not in a good way. It was that weird calm people talk about before a tornado touches down. Melissa noticed it too. No more calls. No texts. No passive-aggressive Facebook comments. Just silence. Then, one evening, a thick envelope arrived in the mail. No return address, just my name and our house number in careful handwriting. Inside were copies of old business contracts, stuff from over a decade ago, back when I helped my father restructure the company after the housing crash. Tucked between them was a sticky note. Let's talk before things get messy. I didn't need to ask who sent it. Melissa read through the pages, then threw them back onto the kitchen table. They're not just trying to guilt you now, she said. They're trying to scare you. But what they didn't understand, what none of them seemed to get, was that I wasn't afraid. They thought I wouldn't walk away because of how deep everything was tied: money, property, my sister's mortgage payments that still went through our shared company account. But they forgot I wasn't 12 anymore. I didn't need their approval. And they weren't the people I thought they were. The next morning, I started the paperwork to fully separate my assets from the family business. I gave them 30 days to clean out anything with their names on it. That included the office lease my parents still used, the shared business card my sisters abused for client dinners, and the tax account they all piggybacked on every April. Melissa helped me comb through everything. She was meticulous. Relentless. She hated them more than I did, I think. 2 days later, my mom showed up at Emily's school. I found out because the school secretary called me, confused. She said Emily had already been picked up by her grandmother. I left work and drove straight there, heart pounding the entire way. Emily was in the parking lot with my mom, holding a milkshake and a tiny shopping bag. When I pulled up, Emily waved like nothing was wrong. My mom didn't look surprised. She just smiled, said, "We were catching up," and handed Emily over without a word about permission or rules or anything. In the car, Emily told me Grandma said we were just fighting about money, and that everyone would be happy again soon. I kept my hands on the wheel and said nothing the entire ride home. That night, I sent a text to the whole family group thread. No one picks up Emily without written permission from me or Melissa. Ever again. They didn't reply. But the next day, a message came, not from them, but from Emily's school counselor. Apparently, my mom had asked to be added as an emergency contact. When the school said they needed parental approval, she argued. Said she had every right as the grandmother. Melissa lost it. She wanted to call the police, get a restraining order. I told her to wait. Not because I didn't agree, but because I had something better in mind. The day after, I called the accountant who handled the family books. A friend from college. I told him I wanted every financial tie severed. He didn't ask questions. Just said, "Understood." That same week, I revoked my father's access to the real estate platform we use for all new projects. Within an hour, he emailed. 2 sentences. Didn't realize things were this bad. Emily needs her grandparents. Let's fix this. That's when I realized it wasn't about Emily at all. They weren't trying to repair anything. They were trying to keep the money flowing. And they were using my daughter to do it. The email from my father sat unopened for 2 days. I read it eventually, but only to confirm what I already knew. It was all about optics. A few lines about family unity, healing, and of course, a not-so-subtle reminder that Emily needed balance in her life. He actually wrote that. Balance. As if sneaking around behind our backs and dragging a child into adult manipulation was somehow a noble counterweight to Melissa and me protecting her. But they were just getting started. That weekend, Emily asked if she could FaceTime with Grandma. Melissa froze. I told her to go ahead. I needed to know what was being said behind the scenes. I listened from the hallway. The conversation started normal. My mom complimented her drawings, asked about school, acted like everything was completely fine. But then she pivoted. She asked if Emily ever felt like I was angry all the time. No. She said sometimes parents get overwhelmed with money things and forget about love. Emily didn't respond. She just looked down and changed the subject. Later that night, she asked me if we were poor now. That question broke something in me. I opened my laptop and scheduled a meeting with our lawyer. Not to sue anyone. Not yet. Just to draft a family trust revision and officially remove my parents from any future disbursement plans. I wasn't going to let Emily inherit a toxic mess. Then, something unexpected happened. Melissa got a call from Caitlin, my eldest sister. They hadn't spoken in months. Caitlin said she wanted to clear the air, that she hadn't agreed with the cruise plan, that she thought skipping Emily's birthday was wrong, but felt pressured not to speak up. She said my mom told all of them I insisted on having the party alone. That was the narrative now. That I had told them not to come. Melissa let her talk. Then she asked calmly if Caitlin had really believed that. Caitlin didn't answer directly. Instead, she said something that caught us both off guard. Do you think Emily would want to lose her whole family over this? That one question told us everything. They were still using Emily. Just dressing it up in concern. After the call, Melissa looked at me and said, "They're not going to stop. Not until they're cut off completely. Emotionally. Legally. Financially." So I made the decision. The next day, I pulled our final joint project, an apartment build-out in Scottsdale, out of the family company's umbrella. I took it under my private LLC. It was the most profitable one we had, and I was the primary investor. I hired a new manager, independent accountant, and legal consultant. No more shared passwords. No more joint anything. Then I made one last move. I called Emily in from her room and sat her down. Melissa joined me. We told her carefully that we were making changes in the family. That she could still love her grandparents and aunts, but we were going to take some space. She listened quietly. Then she surprised us. She said, "Can you still forgive them one day? Even if they were really mean?" I asked why she wanted that. "Because you're the good one," she said. "And if the good one gets mean, who's left?" I couldn't answer that. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to guilt. Not regret for protecting my daughter, but for having to. About 2 weeks into the silence, the air around our house felt like a held breath. Nothing from my parents, nothing from my sisters. No texts. No calls. No drama. At first, it seemed like maybe they'd finally backed off. But Melissa said it before I could. "This isn't peace. It's a setup." She was right. The calm broke on a Wednesday morning, just before Emily left for school. Melissa got an email from a name she didn't recognize. It was from a woman claiming to be a real estate attorney, representing my sister Haley. According to the email, Haley believed she had undocumented equity participation in the Scottsdale development, the same one I'd pulled from the family business weeks ago. The message requested mediation before considering litigation. It wasn't just unexpected. It was absurd. Haley's involvement in Scottsdale was non-existent. She once referred to it as your desert thing during a Zoom call. But now apparently it was hers too. I sent it to my lawyer, who responded within minutes. Zero legal basis. Let her try. But it wasn't about winning. It was a warning shot. They wanted to remind me they were still in the game, still circling. Still willing to turn blood into leverage. Later that day, Emily got a small package in the mail. No return address, no note beyond a tiny card with my mom's handwriting. Never forget where you come from. Inside was a silver necklace with a heart pendant. Cheap but polished. Emily loved it instantly. She wore it the next day. Melissa stood at the door, watching her leave for school with a look I hadn't seen before, resentment mixed with helplessness. I told her to let it go. Let them show their hand. The more they tried, the easier it would be to prove they were manipulating a child for access. 2 nights later, I was working late when my assistant messaged me. Your dad is here. I thought it was a joke. I walked out and there he was, sitting in the reception area like it was a family reunion. He had a coffee in one hand and a thin folder in the other. He stood when he saw me and said, "Let's stop acting like strangers." I didn't say a word. Just opened the door and waited for him to walk through it. When I didn't respond, he gave a little smirk, like I was the unreasonable one. The next morning, Caitlin called. She sounded off, scared, almost. She didn't waste time. She said my parents were planning to file for visitation rights with Emily. Not full custody. Not a legal battle. Just court-recognized access. They're serious, she said. Mom said you left her no choice. I hung up without saying anything. Later that day, I got an automated alert that someone had tried to log into our shared old family Dropbox. It was already closed, already dead. But they were still poking at the locks. I told Melissa we needed to prepare for more than just pettiness. We had to prepare for legal war. She didn't hesitate. She started organizing every file, texts, calls, screenshots, photos of missed birthdays, everything. Even the Venmo request. She was surgical. But then Emily did something that stopped both of us cold. After dinner, she handed me a piece of paper from her sketchbook. In her handwriting, barely a sentence. I think they want you to hate them forever. Don't let them win. She didn't explain it. Just handed it over and went back to her room like she'd delivered a message from someone else. Maybe she had. Maybe it was from a part of her that still believed people could change. That night, while Melissa was folding laundry and the house was quiet, I opened my laptop and started typing an email. Mom. Dad. Let's meet. I stared at it for a while. I didn't send it. But I didn't delete it either. Something had shifted. I wasn't sure what. Maybe this wasn't about revenge anymore. Maybe it was about finishing what they started. On my terms. They picked the diner near the old movie theater we used to go to as kids. The kind of place with laminated menus and cracked red booths. My mom's choice, I'm sure. A location soaked in fake nostalgia, as if that could soften anything. I walked in at exactly 6 p.m. They were already there, sitting side by side in a booth by the window. My dad looked up first. He smiled like it was a normal Tuesday. My mom followed, her eyes a little red, probably more from stress than sadness. I didn't sit. Not right away. My dad gestured to the booth. We just want to talk. I slid in, more out of curiosity than anything else. The first few minutes were light. They asked about Emily, about Melissa, about work. I didn't offer much. My silence did the talking. Then my mom leaned in and asked if I was really going to let everything fall apart over a misunderstanding. That was the word they chose. Misunderstanding. I told them it wasn't about one missed birthday. It was about a pattern. About control, manipulation, and pretending love was unconditional when it clearly had strings. I said their sudden need for visitation rights, said more than any apology ever could. My dad shook his head. We thought you'd cut us out forever. We panicked. He didn't say sorry. Just that. We panicked. Then my mom pulled out a paper, a proposal, she called it. Written terms for us to rebuild. With structure. Bi-weekly visits. Limited business interaction. Financial independence. Everything signed and witnessed. My dad added that they would step back from all company assets. No lawsuits. No threats. They wanted to hit reset. Officially. I took the paper and left without agreeing. That night I read it with Melissa. It was cleaner than I expected. No traps. Just desperate boundaries disguised as compromise. And yet, it was Emily who made the final decision for us. The next morning, she asked if we were still a broken family. I didn't know how to answer. She said, "They're not good at being nice. But they still want to be near me. That means something, right?" That hit harder than anything they'd said in the diner. So I signed the paper. Not because I trusted them. Not because they deserved it. But because my daughter was 11 years old and already understood something I'd only just learned: forgiveness isn't weakness. It's control. It's choosing to move forward even when the past keeps tugging your sleeve. Melissa and I kept the financial separation permanent. The company is mine now. Clean. Quiet. The visits started small. Just Emily at first. Then holidays. Then dinners. No one talks about the cruise anymore. No one talks about that birthday. But sometimes, when I see my mom watching Emily with that tight smile she always wears when she knows she almost lost something, I remember. They didn't apologize. They just surrendered. Update. 6 months passed. The paper they signed held. Mostly. My parents kept their distance, at least from me and Melissa. They came around for the scheduled visits, always on time, always polite. Emily loved seeing them again. She never talked about what happened, and we didn't ask her to. That was the agreement: she stays out of the war we almost let her get caught in. Things almost felt manageable. Then something unexpected came through in a thick yellow envelope from a probate lawyer in Arizona. Melissa opened it before I got home. When I walked in, she was sitting at the dining table holding a stack of old letters. "What is this?" I asked. She handed me one, already opened. The letter was dated 5 years ago, from my Uncle Ron, my father's estranged younger brother who lived off-grid most of his life. I hadn't seen him since my wedding. It turned out he'd died 6 months earlier. No funeral, no obituary. But he'd left behind land. 53 acres just outside Sedona. Quiet. Untouched. Worth a small fortune now. And here's the twist: he left it to me. Not to my father. Not to the family. Just me. In the letter, Ron wrote that he'd watched from a distance, knew what kind of man my dad was, and saw what I was trying to do with the business. He wrote, "I figured you were the only one who might not screw this up." I stared at that line for a long time. Melissa pulled out another paper from the envelope, one I hadn't seen yet. A note from the lawyer, saying my father had tried to contest the will. Quietly. Without telling anyone. A few weeks after Ron died, he filed a private motion claiming undue influence. It was denied. The lawyer added, "He may try again." So there it was. While we were playing nice, eating family dinners and sharing quiet visits, my father had been trying to take something that was never his to begin with. Again. I didn't say anything to Emily. Not yet. But I told Melissa I was going to Arizona. Alone. I needed to see the land. What I found was strange. The property was beautiful. Wild. Isolated. But in the middle of it, just beyond a dry creek bed, there was a small wooden cabin. Hand-built. 1 room. And on the inside wall, carved into the beams, was a name. Emily. Just that. Nothing else. My uncle had never met her. Never even asked about her. But somewhere in that silence, he'd left her something. That night, I stood outside the cabin and called my dad. He picked up on the second ring. "I know about the land," I said. He didn't deny it. Just paused, then said, "It would have been wasted on you." I hung up. And I knew then, no paper, no agreement, no scheduled dinner could ever fix what was broken between us. Some people don't heal. Some people just stop pretending. I kept the land. I didn't build on it. But I made a decision. When Emily turns 18, it's hers. Maybe she'll burn it down. Maybe she'll build something better. Either way, it won't be wasted.